Today's forum is being hosted by our two local newspapers, The Independent and Mountain View Telegraph, as well as the Greater Edgewood Area Chamber of Commerce. This is a nonpartisan informational forum, and it's being recorded for potential broadcast on local radio station KXNM 88.7 FM, as well as being recorded on video, which we hope to send a link up for you on YouTube. So let's review the rules of today's forum and the format. So we greatly appreciate the use of this facility from Woodsend Church. We'll have a 10-minute bio break at roughly 1 o'clock, or at another time designated by our moderator. Earlier today, the candidates drew for seat position on the podium, and that's the order that they drew. Each candidate will have the opportunity to respond to each question. The order of respondents will rotate with each question as well. All questions will be timed, and the candidates will receive a visual warning when they have 30 seconds remaining on their time allotment, and again once their time has expired. Once response is ended, the moderator will move to the next candidate or question as appropriate. Please remember, these candidates are here today to share with you their ideas and positions. Please be considerate of their limited time to do so, and if you have a different view on a topic, please remember we are all neighbors and we're here today for the benefit of the Edgewood community. So we look forward to a respectful, meaningful exchange of ideas. Before I turn this over to the moderator, could we all please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We were supposed to have two moderators today, but Leota Harriman with The Independent is down with the flu, and she thought you'd all appreciate if she didn't share. So our one and only moderator today, and most of you know him, is Rory McClanahan. He is the Executive Director for the New Mexico Press Association and a member of our community, and we are very glad to have him here today. I'd also like to thank Jan Parks with Parks Digital Editing Artworks for doing photography and video for us today.
I guess that makes that my turn. I would like to thank you all for showing up, and I would like to thank you for the invitation to come out here and do this. I've done several candidate forums before. As a matter of fact, I think almost all of you have probably fielded questions from me at one point or another. And just to let the audience know that there's some very good questions. A lot of them touch on the same subjects. So if you don't hear me reading your question verbatim, don't panic. I'm kind of combining things together to make sure that those broad issues get answered and asked. So Linda, did you explain? We're gonna go ahead and give the candidates 2 minutes to go through and just sort of introduce themselves, and then after that we will go through and I will ask each candidate a question, and they'll have 2 minutes to answer. I will ask them to be respectful of each other, and let's not make this into a wrestling match or anything like that. I would also ask the audience to be respectful as well. If I hear disrespect from the audience, I will stop and I will point you out, and we'll get Linda to take you outside.
So my name is Yvonne Riley. I've lived in Edgewood for going on 3 years. I originally moved to Estancia, New Mexico from Denver, Colorado. It's a great story. I'd love to tell you one day. I lived in an apartment complex that was bigger than the town I moved to, but love is blind and crazy, and my husband and we moved to Estancia. So I lived in Torrance County. I went and I got my master's in Albuquerque at New Mexico Highlands University, and I said driving from Estancia to Albuquerque every day is killing me. So I said we needed to move closer. So we made Edgewood our home. I have a 10-year-old daughter that goes to Route 66, which I love because I also get to be in the schools. I don't know, maybe I'm the crazy mom when they see me coming, because I like to be in everybody's business at the school because that's my kids' school. So I decided to run. I think this town is on the verge of greatness. I think it's ready to blow. People are noticing Edgewood. It's a beautiful community, and we're close to a lot of stuff, which makes it really, it's like a gem. So I want to be part of seeing how it grows. And I think it's important that everybody gets involved in the community. So this is my way. That's me.
Audrey?
Okay. My name is Audrey Jaramillo, and I am from here. I've been in Edgewood since 1986 and in the East Mountains since 1980. I went to San Antonio. I went to Moriarty Middle School, Moriarty High School, and then on to UNM. And I did get my degree in accounting there at UNM and went straight to work for a public accounting firm in Albuquerque. And for the last 20 years, I have been serving nonprofits and governmental entities as a CPA and also a certified fraud examiner. And so I have consulted with and audited with many, many governmental entities over the years. For my personal hat, so that's kind of my professional hat, but my personal hat, I have 4 kiddos and 21 at UNM and CNM, and 17 at the East Mountain Charter High School. And then my little guy is 12 and he goes to Edgewood Middle School. I did serve on the Moriarty Edgewood School District School Board for 8 years, and I was instrumental in keeping Edgewood Elementary open the first time, and not as successful the second time around when the budget crunch came. I've been a volunteer here in the town for many years, and a big supporter, of course, of small business and own my own small business. And my hopes are to continue serving the town here on town council.
Thank you, Glenn.
I moved to New Mexico in 1994, and Edgewood shortly after that. I'm a retired UNM medical school manager, and I was a licensed mental health counselor for a lot of years. I ran for council in 2006 at the urging of a lot of friends and neighbors, and served on council from 2006 to 2010 as a councilor and mayor pro tem. I think probably what I'm proudest of in that period, and it was a busy period with a lot of annexation, a lot of land use decisions, but probably my proudest accomplishment was starting the Edgewood Police Department. That was clearly very, very necessary, and I chaired the committee with a number of other people, including Councilor Ring, to get that going. I think the town at this point has, the way I think about it is they've matured. We have, and the challenges are different, that now we can sort of look toward the future and look toward long-range planning that was harder to do back in 2006. I'm very interested in serving on council to advance economic development. I think we need to focus a lot on our infrastructure, and that would include paving and also stabilizing and expanding our wastewater treatment plant. I'd love to see us attract some light industry. There's an awful lot we can do, and I'd really like to be part of it. Our demographics have changed over the years, so as we develop things for people to do, we have to be aware that we now are a slightly older community than we were back in 2010, and we need things that appeal to a whole range of people on a whole range of different budgets. I think my overarching goal, though, is to apply the skill set that I have to helping the town get through whatever faces us.
Thank you, Glenn. Linda?
My name is Linda Hawley, and I've been in Edgewood for 18 years now and in the state of New Mexico for over 30. I was in Albuquerque before I moved here. I believe I've got the time, interest, and the desire to serve you on town council. I'm retired from Sandia Labs for 2 years now, and I've been attending council meetings for the last 2 years straight. my desire is to make a meaningful contribution to our community. I think I might be the only one on this panel who's had municipal town experience, and specific to Edgewood. I was the interim clerk treasurer here in 2016 for 5 months, and it really gave me a good opportunity to learn the daily operations of the town and get to know our dedicated employees that keep things running. I've got a bachelor's in business administration and a master's in library science. I earned my project management certification while I was at Sandia. I'm business oriented, and I've grown up in a 3-generation family-owned business. My grandparents started a restaurant back in the 40s, and so I'm very business focused, and I've got financial skills and a strong customer service orientation as well, and appreciation for the challenges and sacrifices that small business owners must overcome. I had been asked if I was interested in being on the council when there was an early retirement by one of the councilors, and I just jumped at the chance to continue to serve. So I have been your councilor for the past 9 months, and I would like to continue for a full term. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Susan?
Thank you all for coming. It's nice to see a full room. My name is Susan Simons. We've been living here for over 20 years, and ever since we've been here, I have been involved as the outside prickly person for the town. I was a member of the library advisory board when it was in the little strip mall down there where the Hug-a-Horse is now. I helped pass that bond to get the animal shelter built because I thought it was needed. Mahatma Gandhi said you can tell a group of people by the way they treat their animals and their elderly. I want to be involved because I see in this town growth without transparency. I think things are happening that we need to be more involved with as citizens. The budget is no longer on the town website. Things are happening, I think, without real citizen input. Edgewood can be the center of shopping and recreation. People come from Santa Rosa to go to Walmart. Walmart did not devastate a town like in other places. I believe in small business. This is the perfect place for small business to grow. We have a lot of opportunity, but we need to give them some support. And finally, I think I would like to see some multifamily housing here for young families, affordable housing. When my kids were in school, they were talking about building another high school here. And now they've closed 2 schools. So I think we have an opportunity for growth here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll start with the questions, and we'll start with Riley. Excuse me. I also have the crud. Who here doesn't have it? And remember, you have 2 minutes for your answer, and they will flip their little board over there if you to keep you on track. So, what is your vision and priorities for Edgewood, and how can your presence on the council help accomplish those?
Well, I'm currently not on the board, so I can't answer that to the best of my ability because I don't know what's out there. I would have to definitely see what would need to be take priority. But with that being said, I think what I could bring is that I would look at all aspects of it. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people want to work on a lot of things at one time, and if we had an infinite amount of money, we could do that, but we can't. So we'd have to look at what's going to be the priority, what's going to be the best for us to grow in the future. And I think I do like getting the people involved, getting input from our citizens to do that. And I would work really hard on doing that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Audrey?
So my vision, sorry, I'm just getting over this crud also. So my vision for Edgewood really is to focus in on the lifestyle of Edgewood and the vitality of our town. I think we have so much opportunity here, and there's so much great about Edgewood that we all love already, but then so much opportunity as well for future generations to come. As far as how I would work on that, definitely knowing the vision of the people is so important. So I would want more information and direction from the community on that, and then use my leadership skills in governance of the town on town council to actually help make that happen. And how you do that is in the powers that are given to us as council with the budget. And so taking a look at the budget each year, taking a look at the personnel, taking a look at policies and procedures, because those have a big impact on the direction that the town goes as well. And then also, one of the things that I have been successful with in my background, just having served over 200 governmental entities in the state, is collaboration with other governmental entities. And so even having been on the school board for 8 years, if we're looking at vision for education, for example, then I would have the contacts and the relationships to be able to collaborate with the school district. And so things like that where we can work together for the good of our town in the future is what I intend to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm going to take these in the opposite order. You know, the question was vision and priorities, but let me hit priorities first. I think for any town, especially a relatively young town like this, a top priority has to be staying within your budget. And for the years that I served on council, it was a struggle. I don't know how many of you know that the budget can't be a zero-based budget, that you have to have a positive margin. The state requires that you have money in reserve that you haven't spent. And sometimes that can be a struggle to stay above that line. So we have to look at what we have available and fund as much as we can. What enters into that is we've recently annexed, I think it's on the order of 1,300 people and 8 miles of road. So priority has to be listening to what those people have to say about what services they need. Governments exist really for a few very core principles, to provide safety, health, and prosperity to a community. So those are where my priorities lie, is providing that to the people who live here. As far as the vision goes, I don't have a preset vision of my own. Probably beyond keeping this a place where we like the quality of life here. That you don't want to develop a town to the point where you don't like where you live anymore. So my vision is having this be a prosperous place, a healthy place, a safe place, while at the same time a place that we all enjoy living. Thanks.
Thank you. Linda?
All right. My priorities, number one, are fiscal responsibility. And I'm pleased to say that this year, for the first time in the last 3, we've gotten a clean bill of health from the Department of Finance and Administration in Santa Fe. The prior 2 years, we were issued warnings by that office saying that our reserves were dangerously low. So I would like to continue to see the town build on those reserves so that when an opportunity comes along for us to partner with another entity or have matching funds for a grant, we've got something in the bank that we can move forward and take care of the project, similar to what has just happened with our First Choice Community Healthcare Clinic. We are partnering with the state as well as the county, and we've got some skin in the game too. the town contributed $35,000 to move that forward, and that clinic will be breaking ground in just a couple of weeks here and be finished by the end of the year. In addition to our fiscal responsibility, excuse me, I need to move on. In addition to the fiscal responsibility that is incumbent upon us as counselors to be good stewards of your tax dollars, we do need to move forward with an economic development plan. And I believe we need to get started on the infrastructure here in town. And it seems like for the last few administrations, we've been going in different directions. We need to start pulling together in one direction, move forward, get something in place so that when those entrepreneurs come here and want to start a new venture, we are able to tell them, we've got it ready for you to go, you can plug in. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
We need to build on what we already have here. We can't be jumping into something new. Although we need to take a look at what we already have here. Many of our ordinances and our comprehensive plan is 10 years old. I was very happy to hear the other night at the council meeting that there's going to be an effort to move our comprehensive plan forward and revise it. But you all need to be part of that. You all need to, it can't be just planning and zoning or the town council who makes those decisions. Every one of you, especially our new citizens of Edgewood, need to be part of that. I was an executive at a nonprofit for 7 years. And we had to have 6-month reserve in the bank. I would like to say I am fiscally responsible, but I also like to say that I'm fiscally inventive. We cannot keep going back to the same way of raising money, taxes and mill levies and bonds. We need to think about other ways, public-private partnerships to get things done. I think that would be very important here in Edgewood. We want new businesses, but I don't think we want Google or Intel to move in here. I think we want to attract smaller family businesses, 8, 10 employee businesses. We need to be ready for those kind of folks. And our sewer and our roads are highly important for that.
Thank you. On to the second question, and this one will be start with Audrey Harvey. And I'm going to try and put this all together that makes sense. And of course, Edgewood's nearly 20 years old now, and during those 20 years, and I would almost venture to say every council meeting, one of our audience members wanted to know specifically about property of annexation north of Dairy Queen, but there are many other properties around the area that are not annexed, and then there are some that have been annexed and against the wishes of some property owners. So the question is, how are you as a council member going to address these continuing issues with annexation and making sure that the roads are properly maintained after that annexation?
It's a great question. I was part of the recent annexation and in my neighborhood, and I do have to say, you know, over time, looking at how Edgewood has developed and grown and coming into our own identity, so to speak, I am very glad that we don't have the checkerboard anymore. So I am thankful for that. I think that the core of our town does need to be here, and we need to be united in that. It makes things less complex for services for the government to provide, and for the people, it's much less confusing. I'm glad to see all of you here today because you're exercising your right to vote, hopefully, and I think that's another great benefit of being annexed. The roads, I know that is a priority of mine, and in my vision anyway for the town is making sure that we have that funding for road maintenance. And so in that would be, for me, an important line item of the budget. As far as future annexations, I don't have anything on my radar personally where I'm hoping to expand the town's boundaries. But that's something that I would look at on a case-by-case basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
It's an interesting question. Looking at the infill map recently, as far as I know, the only things that were left out of recent annexation are pieces of property that don't have anything on them. They're sort of white, little white spots in the map. So I think we've probably, and this is where I say maturity, we've kind of reached a point where we've now annexed everything that people are living on, and people are interested in services. Campaigning, knocking on doors, I've had people ask me, well, when are you going to pave my road? And that's clearly out of our reach. The number of roads in this town at the cost of $1 million a mile to pave a road. We're not going to be paving all of Edgewood anytime soon. But there's a lot we can do that can improve roads. One of those things is to look very closely at the old priorities we had for what roads are our arterials and turn our attention to those. Those are the things that really serve business and residents in this town anyway. I mean, those have the most traffic on them by definition. I think those are also the things that serve economic development. And I would love to see us pave roads, pave arterials to the point where we can entertain the idea of a second interstate entrance. And I think for both safety and for economic development reasons, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have a single way in and out of this town. We had a recent traffic accident under I-40 that sort of illustrated the difficulties with that. And I think about things like a fire, anywhere we would have to get people out of this town. We probably need to focus back on our arterials and make that a priority. Thanks.
Thank you. Linda?
Right. I think right now we've got to work on the annexation that's already been approved. I don't see us doing any further annexation at this time. As Glenn already mentioned, we did annex 1,300 additional residents and 8 miles of roads. And so with that, comes additional strains on our budget. I think one thing the town is considering, instead of paving with asphalt, is using a chip seal pavement. So maybe our dollars can be stretched a little bit further. Another thing I do want to say about the annexation, filling in the infill like we did has been real helpful, I think, for us to provide better services. There were times when, previous to the annexation, there were folks that were on the county on this side of the road, and on this side of the road you were a town of Edgewood resident. And so it made it difficult when the police were called out, what side of the road is the address on, or things to that effect. And so I think it's helping us to serve you better having done that infill. I agree, roads are a part of our infrastructure, and we do need to get back to updating a priority list. I think that is one of the resolutions that we've got for the town, and that list has not been updated, I believe, since 2012. That's a responsibility of our P&Z Commission, so I'd like to see that reinstated and brought forward to the council so that we can look at what we've got in the budget and start working on some of those paving requests.
Thank you. Susan?
We are the 8th largest town in the state of New Mexico. That is land mass, that is not people. That's an awfully lot of land and cows out there that we need to take care of. one of the, I wouldn't say problems, but opportunities that we have is we share so many of our roads with the state highway department. They're not always just Edgewood roads. We want to do something on this road out here, which I thank you, 344. It's the one with Dairy Queen on it, I know how to get there. We have to talk about it with the state. We can't just go in and do stuff there. That is something, when we talk about combined and working collaboration, that's what we have to think about. Again, you were right, Linda, that this makes it so much easier for our police force and our fire department to serve the people. But I have to say that I had a piece of property annexed, and I got a letter and said, welcome to the town. I lived on one piece of property, my other piece of property was annexed. I didn't know about it. We go back to the transparency that needs to be here in our town. I also would like to say, if you are interested, please go visit and make sure you see the P&Z folks. Go to their meetings. They are going to be very, very busy in the next couple of years with roads, with ordinances. Make sure your voice is heard down there. And zoning. It says stop.
Thank you very much. Yvonne?
I agree with everybody. So thank you for letting me be last on this question. Yeah, when they mentioned like problems with annexing, I would want to know why, who's having the issues, why are they having issues. But I think everybody hit on the bottom on every great topic. No, we don't have the money to pave every road. I would like to have a paved road. That's not realistic. So what are there other things that we can do? What are the worst roads out there? And I know everybody, then you get to what is a worst road? My road's the worst road. So, it's just like Ms. Simmons said, it's getting people involved. P&Z, that's who we need to get involved with. So as a board member, I would want to be very much involved with P&Z. What's going on? How can I help? And then make sure that people know they need to attend those meetings as well. And they need to let their voice be heard. And I would do my very best to make that happen in any capacity I could.
Thank you. On to question 3. This one we'll start with Mr. Felton. Taxes. Do you see the town having a role in increasing those taxes? And if so, what and how would you support local business success?
Well, the town is partly funded by gross receipts taxes. It's probably the biggest piece, but we also levy property tax. There's property tax that is levied by the county, a portion of which returns to us. And there is what's called hold harmless monies that come to us. When the tax that was charged on groceries was repealed, the state committed to give us a chunk of money so that we wouldn't suffer. And that chunk of money was kind of set in stone at a point in the past, and that's what we get. So actually what we're dealing with in the town is sort of blended funding. And if you look only at gross receipts tax, I haven't looked at all the specific pieces of it in a while now, but they're charged in bits and pieces. So you can charge one piece in one category, another piece in another category. When you add something like, say, an environmental impact, now you can charge gross receipts on that. I think we're pretty well maxed out on what we can charge for gross receipts. And I believe we have one of the highest gross receipts taxes in the state. That's partly as a result of being in Santa Fe County. So I think we need to look not to more gross receipts tax as a way to go. It's also potentially not a good thing for business to have the highest gross receipts in the state. I think we need to look at other more creative sources of funding and revenue. Thanks.
Thank you. Linda?
All right. Personally, I don't see a need for increasing taxes anytime soon. The previous council did impose property tax on the citizens of Edgewood at the rate of 3 mills. And one thing I've got to say about that is it is now bringing in revenue from the Campbell Ranch area, from the properties that the Edgewood town limits include in Bernalillo and Sandoval County. So at least we're seeing a little bit of funding coming from that area of our town. The other way I think this current administration is being responsible with our tax dollars is looking at places to save. That's going to make our budget go further. For instance, the library building that we just vacated, it was costing us over $63,000 a year just for housing the library in that rental facility. We were able, through our good relationship with the school district, talk to them about moving into their abandoned or closed elementary school. That's a building that the taxpayers have already paid for, and now we're able to repurpose it. And we've moved our library there, expanded the area that they've got to use, and reduced what it would cost us in rent previously. We'll also be moving our town offices down there to take advantage of that property. So again, I don't see any need for us at this time to raise any taxes. It's just making better decisions with the money that we are bringing in. And as Glenn mentioned, you know, with us being in Santa Fe County, we do have a high tax burden because of where we live. So that's the end.
Thank you. Susan?
Thank you. Gross receipts tax is foreign money. It's not always our money that we're getting into the town. If we can bring in for recreational purposes, people shopping here from Santa Rosa, from Moriarty, that's gross receipts tax. That's a new $5 bill that's showing up in our coffers. We also have lodger's tax here now. We have this great, and it's a hotel because the doors open to the inside and not the outside, which would make it a motel. But we have lodger's tax now, which that money, and I have not seen the lodger's tax ordinance, but mostly that money goes into advertising for the town, which we can partner, collaborate with the chamber on. It goes in a lot, many times that can go into infrastructure. So we have that money, and that money we know is foreign money. It's not Edgewood money. I believe there are rumblings in Santa Fe that the hold harmless money might be cut back. So we need to think about what we're going to do if that happens. Also, you know, many of you I've run into to get the sign the petition for liquor sales, packaged liquor sales on Sunday. Now that money doesn't come to the town. That goes to the state. But anyone who walks in there, I can't imagine them buying one thing. They're going to buy chips, they're going to buy paper towels, they're going to buy other things, and that money would come to us. So we need to look at other ways to bring in foreign money to our town by collaboration and by creative thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Yvonne?
Could you restate that question?
As soon as I put it away. Yes.
Okay, sorry. I did that on purpose.
The town is largely funded by gross receipts taxes. Do you see the town having a role in increasing those taxes? And if so, how would you support local business success?
So I guess my question is, are they asking if we want to bring more business in, or do we want to increase the current gross receipt tax?
Yes.
Awesome. I don't like the idea of increasing our current gross receipt tax, but I think that we should always be willing to help at least look into new businesses coming. I think if you don't, then you're going to kind of stagnate. And so my position would be, let's get the town ready for people that do want to come and start a business, look into different light industry work that could possibly come out here. But again, it would definitely want to get the input of the people and to see, are we ready for other or more businesses to come into our town? Are we infrastructurally sound to do that? And if not, let's get there.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Audrey?
As a CPA, I'm fiscally conservative and also fiscally responsible, hopefully, in my decisions. I also believe that our gross receipts tax is high, and being part of Santa Fe County causes that. I don't see the immediate need to increase taxes. I am not in favor of increasing taxes because there are so many in our community here on fixed incomes. And I've just spoken to a couple right before we started here today that we know that is so difficult for many who are on fixed incomes as the costs increase. I was thinking about the variety of ways as well, like Glenn mentioned, the income streams, and then as Linda mentioned, you know, doing well with the funds that we have, and mentioning the north building of Edgewood Elementary School. I was instrumental in that, in fighting for the town. I fought long and hard with my fellow board members to have the town of Edgewood only pay $1 a year, like many other governmental entities do. They have joint powers agreements and memorandums of understanding with each other to kind of help each other out. We didn't get it down that far, unfortunately, but it did save the town a lot of money. So there again, collaboration with other entities, public and private, can be very helpful. So hopefully, just as you know, my background with working with governments in budgets, and as a CPA, I will bring a strength to council in that area.
Touched on it a little bit, so this one, and make sure I can word it correctly. Are you in favor of creating creating light industry or manufacturing zoning within Edgewood? And this sort of fits in with what kind of businesses would you like to see for the town? And we'll start with Linda first. Sorry.
Yes, I am in favor of making it possible for light industry to get a foothold here in town. I would like to see us encourage business, light industry especially, to expand our tax base. We were just talking, like you said, about taxes here, and if we get more businesses in and expand and diversify that tax base, then the burden won't be on us, the property owners, when the town needs to expand its budget. I believe that in the current zoning ordinance, there is a definition for light industry, and that needs to be called out as its own separate category of zoning, so that when people that are looking to start a business here, if they see that called out in the zoning ordinance, they will know that we, the town, are ready for them. We've thought about this, and we can be proactive in helping them. I've had a conversation this week with someone at the senior center saying that he had a neighbor who was interested in having a local business here, making custom spas. And I think we need to start encouraging that type of business here. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
I also think light industry would be perfect for Edgewood. I think at the same time, I think we need to look very seriously about our sewer plan and our sewer plant and how much we can put into the sewer, where it's connected. Where would we put this light industry? 2 or 3, 5 well-paying jobs would be a great boom here. That's where we work with the chamber, and the Myra Pankrowski over there, to think about advertising us as the place you want to be. But we need the right sewer. We need affordable housing for these folks because we want them to live here. We want them to buy things here. We want them to have their children go to school here. We have to have a welcoming a welcoming town, a place where they want to live as well as work. And that also is gross receipts tax without raising our gross receipts tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Yvonne?
Yes, I'm for, I kind of answered this in my last question as well. Absolutely, light industry work, anything that can boost them, the town, but again, it's being involved with your planning and zoning. What is light industry? Everybody can take anything and make it their own. So yes, making sure that our planning and zoning is not too vague, but that it benefits the people that are wanting to bring in business, and then how we invite them is by being ready infrastructurally. Are we, yeah, exactly. Every point that everybody's made so far is right. Are we gonna have, the water, which is huge, we have to think about that, the roads, can we offer housing for these people, and then who's gonna keep up with the community and letting them know what's going on. So P&Z, planning and zoning, is really big in this. So I think as a board member, we need to be involved in that as well and make sure that people are involved in that.
Thank you. Audrey?
As I mentioned in my intro, I am pro-business, and so I think it is healthy for a town to have a variety of business opportunities. I think that it creates vitality in our community, in the fact that it contributes to the Edgewood lifestyle, which I'm also very committed to, in that we have services, we have jobs, and all of that kind of feeds on each other. And it also increases the gross receipts taxes as well, so that the town has more funding to do more for the community. So it is very positive all the way around. The one thing I would say though, in being committed to the lifestyle of Edgewood, is just to be very careful where we zone these things, and so where we would put manufacturing, and just be conscious and thoughtful of how we are designing our town and our vision for the long term.
Thank you. Glenn?
I want to back up a step and define light industry. Light industry is basically an industry that serves local need rather than something that serves a giant corporation. So it's not assembling General Motors dashboards. An example from my own family, my sister-in-law lives in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where she works in a place that assembles urine catch kits that go to area hospitals. So when you go to a hospital and they have a test kit in a little plastic bag and they rip it open, that's the stuff she makes. I also recall when I was on council years ago, I think we had an industrial zone kind of marked out, but it was almost like an afterthought on our zoning map, and it was somewhere way down along Old 66 or Range Road on a patch of dirt. So basically, if you want to attract light industry, they're going to come here saying, well, what do I get to come to Edgewood? And they might want an industrial park, they certainly want access to our interstate, they may want tax breaks. And that's why working with EVITA, the Estancia Valley Economic Development Association that Myra Pancrazio is part of, is so important. Even if that organization partners with a local economic development group like the Chamber of Commerce, this all needs to be under the heading of LEDA, the Local Economic Development Act that Edgewood adopted many years ago. We can't give perks to light industry to come here on our own. We have to partner with a regional economic developer to help us do that. So all those pieces of the puzzle need to be there before they're going to come here. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Fifth question, towards Susan here. Edgewood has a history of changing directions with each new administration. What impacts do you see from that? And as a counselor, what could you do to change that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to be there for 4 years, which would give me a little foothold. You're right. We have. We get a no growth, we get a small growth, we get a large growth mayor, things change. I think if we had a strategic plan, I believe they're going to call it the land comprehensive plan, which I really don't like because it's more than the land that we're going to plan on. And if the council can make sure, thank you, now I'm not the only one hearing them. Okay.
What is that?
Make sure that the town sticks to it. And that is partially your responsibility. If the town starts wandering off in a different direction, citizens should call them to account on it. Why are you doing this? Where is it going? We want to know. A little more transparency. Where are you going now? Why are we going in this direction? We're paying our taxes. We should have some say, and you should be listening to us. I think not only has the administrations wandered off in their own direction, but I don't think they have been listening to their citizens. And believe me, I will give you my cell phone number and my email address, and I expect to hear from people. And I also would like to hear from people when things are going good too. That would be nice. But I expect from feedback from folks if and when I sit on that town council.
Can you guys hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that you, Lily? Just kidding. Change. I'm a social worker, so change is not easy, but you can't stop it. So I think that I love how she said it's up to the citizens, and it's up to the citizens and the council members to work closely together to make sure that we stay on track of what people want us to stay on track. It's important to listen to what others have to say. We may have an idea, but I may only see so far, and somebody else can see a little bit further. I think it takes a lot of people to see and to make a vision. I welcome everybody's ideas. I don't think there's any bad ideas. Somebody can bring a little speck and it could complete the puzzle. But I think that citizens are the ones that need to tell the council members where they want to go and in what direction, and we need to allow them to participate and encourage it to happen.
Thank you. Audrey?
Would you mind reading the question for me?
Yes. Edgewood has a history of changing directions with each new administration. What impacts do you see from that? And as a counselor, what could you do to change that?
Okay. All right. Well, I do believe that there are many great things that have been developing in our town, and I would like to see continue. So to a certain extent, change is constant. But we don't want it to be disruptive and sort of like a pendulum, right? And so the way I would work with that, I guess, would be to work with others on the council and the mayor and the administration as well to bring some consistency in the flow of how we are creating our town. But to know that, again, I would like feedback from the community early on council as to the vision of how we want our town to be. And then with that, working together and pulling together to make that happen is what I see. So certain change is a reality. We do have what I see many times in organizations, and my work is a generational shift happening. And so the leadership of the old are kind of retiring and moving out, and then the new is coming in. And you need that for the vitality of the town, but you need to respect both, right? So as I see that, it just takes a lot of collaboration and listening and understanding and trying to respect both generations, the older and the new, as well as we look to, moving Edgewood into the future. So.
Thank you, Glenn.
There are two major pieces to this thing that kind of impart the continuity we're talking about. And there's actually a third piece that relates to all of it. The comprehensive plan, as Ms. Simons mentioned, that was kind of put on the back burner for a while. And the comprehensive plan should never be put on the back burner. And we work on that comprehensive plan, updating it, double checking and reassuring that that's the way we want to go, with input from the Middle Rio Grande Council of Governments. And the town has always had someone serving with them to make sure that that happens. So the key to this, in the back of the room, is the town staff. Administrations come and go, but the people managing your town shouldn't. And if they have an appointment with Mr. Cog that is key to making sure that comprehensive plan is up to date, then they need to continue and to maintain that post. The other piece of this is what's called an ICIP, the Capital Improvement Plan. Basically, every year the state asks us, if we were going to give you money from our general fund to do something in your town, what are your priorities? And we spell them out. Well, that can't be veering this way and that way. Your comprehensive plan for this year needs to be mindful of your comprehensive plan from last year, and you need to bring that along. What was top priority last year, maybe that was completed, and now what was second priority rises to first. That's where you get continuity, though. And a lot of it does come back to the town staff. They need to stay in place because they're the glue that holds it together. Thanks.
Thank you, Linda.
All right, we talk about changing directions of each new administration when they come in and what those effects are. I've seen a lot of spinning wheels. We're not making any forward progress. One administration says the center of town's going to be this way. The other administration says we need to focus over here. And consequently, nothing happens. And it's true, we're almost 20 years old now, and we need to, as I said before, we need to be pulling together and working together in the same direction to make some progress, to make our community prosper. As a number of the candidates have said here, at the last council meeting, there was a discussion of rewriting or updating our comprehensive land use plan, and it's time that that is done. It was last published in 2008, so that was over 10 years ago. And during that time, we've had the economic downturn, and things have changed, projections need to be revised, and we need to have, that'll give us a roadmap to move forward. As Glenn mentioned, the ICIP is a real important part of how we plan what the town is going to focus on. And that ICIP discussion happens, I believe, in August, and we do have public hearings, and it is a bit disheartening when we don't get input from our community. And I'd like to say, if I am elected to this council, I have heard from people that say it's difficult for them to get to the council meetings. They're in the evening, it's on a weekday. I'd like to offer to meet with the constituents, and this is everybody. We are at-large councilors. We don't represent one part of town or another. I would like to meet with my constituents on a regular basis. I'm thinking quarterly, maybe we'll have to go to every other month, but I want to hear from you.
Great, thank you. At this time, people are waving and doing the little pee-pee dance. Start off on the next round of questions. And there was, I lost it. There it is. Oh, here we go. And we'll start with Yvonne first. What can be done to protect those of us on fixed income from the high cost of growth?
done? Say that again.
What can be done to protect those of us on fixed incomes from the high cost of growth?
And unfortunately, in the line of work I'm in, I see that every day. And I wish there was an easy answer for that, but there isn't. And my advice to people is to be heard. What might not be a big deal to some people, just an increase of taxes, is going to be a big deal to people that are on fixed incomes. Growth, unfortunately, can be hard, but it shouldn't be where it's devastating to people. And we need to keep that in mind, whether on the board or just for our fellow humans. We need to make sure that we don't make it unobtainable for people that are on fixed incomes. Everybody has a right to have a decent living, and that's why I encourage people to be heard. Let people know.
Great, thank you. Audrey?
It is very difficult. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not in favor of increasing taxes for this very reason, because of the fixed income and the population that we have here that are on fixed incomes. And I know that there are always going to be some increases, of course, with cost of living. Now, do I see growth as directly impacting that? No, not as much, because I do believe that there is synergy and additional tax revenue that comes as more people come. And so as there are more businesses, again, it kind of works in conjunction with each other for that vitality of our community, and that there are more jobs, there are more kids to fill the school district, which causes more funding from the state for the school district, which is the largest employer. And then that creates more administrative positions, EAs, et cetera, et cetera. So as the revenue increases in the town with the growth, that helps alleviate a lot of that burden. Again, I just want to be fiscally responsible and conservative. I have worked with budgets with governments for many, many years. And one of the goals that I do have is to help the town administration obtain a financial award that is given each year that you do your own financial annual report. And with my background, I would help the town put that together. It brings together a lot more items and schedules for transparency, so that in making the decisions in the town's finances, you can look at those facts and look at that data and be transparent to the public, and hopefully keep taxes down.
Thank you. Glenn?
Well, I guess I would start by questioning whether growth has to increase costs. That, there was a time when it seemed that folks in Edgewood believed that residential development was going to be a money maker. And in fact, residential development is usually a money spender. That someone builds a house, you get some gross receipts tax from the sale of that house, but how many times do you have to repair the road in front of that house? So I don't know that growth has to be costly. The other thing that we may be able to do is to find ways to minimize those costs that may come. So as the town grows, if things are sort of far-flung, is there a way that you can help people move around the town? I'm actually thinking about people who have to commute to another place, ride shares and park and rides and things that we can do as we get bigger that make it possible to hold some of those costs down. Right now, we're a town where 60 to 70% of us commute to Albuquerque every day, and many of us do it one person in a car. That comes to mind immediately as an area where you may be able to hold costs down for people. Fixed income isn't going to change. In about 10 years, our average age in Edgewood went from 37 to 44. So this is something it's not going to go away, and we're going to have to be pretty creative about finding ways to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Linda?
I was thinking along the same lines as Glenn, that high cost of growth maybe does not have to impact those on fixed income negatively. We get new businesses, new services, new conveniences here in town, then you won't have to travel to Albuquerque or Santa Fe. For instance, as I mentioned before, the First Choice Clinic will be ready by the end of the year. You know, you're going to have access to medical, dental, behavioral health services there, the WIC program for women, infants, and children, and they are planning to have after hours hours open. I think sometimes with growth, you know, it's going to make it easier on those with fixed income. And if we do have additional businesses, as I stated before, we're going to diversify that tax base, and the business community will be contributing to our budget, where perhaps we won't have to go back to the property owner, the local taxpayer for help with our budget.
Thank you. Susan?
Growth is going to happen. I mean, we can't build a wall and say, don't come in here anymore. People want to live because we have a good lifestyle here. I think we can mitigate the impact of those living on fixed income, and I'm one of them, by increasing our outside, that foreign money I was talking about, those visitors, the folks who will come here and buy things in our stores and use our businesses, encouraging those businesses like First Choice, which, by the way, I'm hoping they put an x-ray machine in there because I had kids here and you had broken bones. So I hope they, anyway. But that is a way to mitigate that cost of growth for those on fixed income, is bringing in new money, bringing in things people want to visit, people want to see. People, you know, growth's going to happen. Fighting the idea that they want to reinstate the gross receipts tax on food. We should be up in arms on that. The gross receipts tax on medicine, we should be up in arms on that. We need to watch not only what's happening here in Edgewood, but what's happening up in the Roundhouse. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. You can certainly confront the candidate after the forum, please.
Thank you. But nicely.
All 6 of them, all 5 of them?
If you can catch them before they hit to their car. All of the candidates have indicated that growth is coming to Edgewood, and one of the concerns that is there, and of course throughout New Mexico, is water. Edgewood does not have its own municipal water system. With increasing growth, how will you as a council confront the potential conflicts for current water holders who might see their wells dry up?
So this is a similar question to one that we will probably have on the sewer, I suspect. But as growth comes, and I don't think that we are to that point yet. So I see that as being pretty far off as far as switching everybody over to municipal enterprise fund utility system. I think that the way we have our water and sewer at this time is working, and so I would not be in favor of trying to work into the facilities master plan to change that at this moment, and I don't see that as a huge concern at this point. Now going forward, of course, if that's something that needs to be considered for our infrastructure for the long term. And if the wells do start running dry, then that is something that we'll have to address again in the ICP, get impact and information from the community and how exactly to move forward with that. But at this time right now, I feel that it is successful the way it is.
Thank you, Glenn.
I feel personally about this one is I helped hand dig all of the water lines on the south side of my street when the shared well they were using dropped another 250 feet. They drilled down to try and get good water and they couldn't, so they went on Entranosa. My side of the street was already on Entranosa. So this is an issue that we're all going to face, and I think New Mexico faces this. When you drill water here, we're not talking about surface water. We're talking about mining water. So basically what you have to do is be mindful of conservation. You have to make smart development decisions. I don't know if it's changed since I've been gone from council, but when I was there, we really didn't force people who were proposing a subdivision to prove up their water. They could say, well, here I have, this much water available, and if they said so, then we just accepted that. So we probably shouldn't be doing things that way anymore. I think we need to be more involved with the state engineer on this issue. And this is true for the entire Southwest, that water is a huge issue. So you have to approach it by, being wise about the way you improve development, conservation. It's not an issue that's going to go away. And if you're not smart about it, you end up with a dry town.
Thank you. Linda?
Would you please repeat the question for me?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can. But obviously, Edgewood does not have its own municipal water system, so the residents of Edgewood depend on the conglomeration of water companies and their own wells. How would you approach the potential conflict between those well owners as Edgewood develops and needs more water?
I must admit I'm not well versed in this area. One thing I'm thinking is perhaps the town can explore obtaining water rights and looking to the future. Explore some possibilities because I'd hate to see this town just dry up and blow away. I'm not aware of, any us being in a situation that's of immediate concern, but this is something I think perhaps through their comprehensive land use plan, that can be addressed as well. But it is something that we need to pay attention to and not put off for the future. Sometimes the way government moves is pretty slow, and there's no time like the present to look at other solutions and other opportunities.
Thank you. Susan?
Water is the biggest limiting resource for probably for growth and for just living in this town. I would like to see a real push by the town and by the citizens for conservation and reuse. We have an ability for gray water from our sewer system that could be used for watering, could be used for, sometimes it comes out, sometimes you can get the water that it is actually potable, that you can drink it from the sewer used. Gray water becomes water that, it might sound terrible, but it can be done. Collecting and being forward-thinking for our citizens, running contests. How would you save water when it falls from the sky as little as it is? How would you reuse that? Instilling in our children the idea of conservation of water. You know, the city of Albuquerque gives people money for low flush toilets. Is that something we want to look at here? We're not getting any more water, that's for sure. But maybe we need to think about innovative ways to reduce the use of water here in our, and reusing some of it that we have. Thank you.
Three things popped into my head was conservation, awareness, and education. That's everybody. That includes children, adults. We need to inform people, make them aware of what's happening, because I think that water conservation needs to be looked at now. I think that we don't want to be caught when all of a sudden it is the wells are drying up and we're like, what do we do? So I think that it's a good idea to plan now, because like many of us have said, growth is happening. Because I don't think there's a wall big enough that's going to keep people out. So I don't know if a municipal water agency is what's required. I don't know. I mean, that's something that we look into. But I think as a town, we could definitely maybe pair up with the schools. Let's do conservation. Let's do an education. Let's do an awareness. Let's do conservation. I mean, my daughter yells at me for leaving the water on when I'm brushing my teeth. That was great. I love that. They obviously talked about that at school, so I think that we could incorporate that into our citizens.
Thank you. Well, seeing as we're sort of on this subject, we might as well move to the sewer system, which you all knew was coming. The sewer system has been an issue since this has been a town. Could you speak to the current policies and whether you support the current policies on the sewer system, and what would you do in the future to improve them? And we'll start with Mr. Feldman.
I was actually on council when we finally finished that thing and opened it, and I remember our town planner, Karen Mahalik, drinking a glass of water that came out of it. It's a membrane bioreactor. It's capable of producing very clean water. And there is a possibility, you know, although it's expensive to pursue it, to inject water like that back into the aquifer. There are communities that do that. I don't think we're there yet. I think what we need to do with this sewer system, it's gone through a number of changes of management. It's been in various states of health. I think the goal right now is to make sure that it's stabilized, that it's operating well, and to start thinking toward expansion. One of the problems we've had with it is that it's served the commercial area that was dumping in waste that it had trouble processing on its own without the kind of golden stuff, which is toilets and showers. That's what helps to keep the system healthy. I think now that we have a hotel, not a motel, that's going to be very useful. I wouldn't propose sewering this whole town, but I think we need to be very attentive to the idea that when we have commercial waste being processed there needs to be a certain amount of residential waste that is balancing that. And I'm very hopeful now that we have some stable management of that thing, that we can bring it back into a state of health and look at expanding it. Thanks.
Thank you, Linda.
You asked about the current policy of the sewer system. Well, as Glenn said, right now it's just serving commercial businesses. There's 53 businesses hooked up to our sewer system. And the future plan is to get residential hookups as well. We're a long way from that. We don't have the funds for it. Right now what is happening is we did get funding to design to expand the collection system. So that's what's happening at this time. And again, as Glenn said, to have that wastewater treatment plant operating efficiently, successfully, we do need to start adding residential waste. The ICIP request for capital outlay funds for the state legislature for this year, we requested funds for a multi-phase project designed to improve and grow the collection system and encourage and accommodate increased use. In addition, we requested funds for improvements at the wastewater treatment plant. Again, you're right, Glenn. That plant has been neglected. The town has hired its own wastewater treatment plant operator now, so that we've got more control and management of what's happening there. So I think we're on the right path.
Thank you. Susan?
I was the Main Street director way back when this sewer first was discussed and put in. And many years ago, I even thought it was a bad idea. At one point, the town was throwing dog food in there to keep those little bugs alive. We're going to need a sewer system. That, in order to bring business in, you have to have a good sewer system. I don't think all the businesses are quite hooked up yet. I'm not sure. I don't know that for a fact. I think the residential design needs close scrutiny about where and how this is going to be expanded. I was at the meeting the other night, Linda, and I want to make sure I'm saying this correctly. It has been a contract issued to an outside company to run the sewer system. Is that right?
Could you please just,
Okay, anyway, I'm sorry. So if that is true, the city is paying somebody else to run our sewer system. I don't think that's a really good idea. I think the sewer system is probably the top priority for us to look at very closely about putting our money, how we're going to put it, how we're going to expand it, and how it's going to be used in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Yvonne?
I think it's needed. I think it needs to be looked at that it's done, obviously, to where it's beneficial for the town. I don't know exactly where we're at as far as if this is a 911. I mean, I think it's important to get it on the capital outlay. Are we going up to Santa Fe enough? Are we telling them, look, this is major. We're going to eventually need this. So how much time are we really putting into that or asking for help? So I definitely think that it needs to happen. I just think that it needs to happen very well. It needs to be done and thought out well.
Thank you. Audrey?
On the sewer system, it has been a point of contention for our town for many years. I do know that it was originally designed never for residential purposes, but for commercial. And the more commercial entities that we would be able to add on, the more it would increase gross receipts taxes and increase the budget that we have to put more money back into it. And there are avenues that have been pursued as far as capital outlays for the sewer. And so I do believe that the town right now has a good plan for the maintenance, maybe looking at some engineering options, maybe changing in the pH of the chemicals, for example, that are put into the system. But what I don't agree with that I've heard is happening, and Linda mentioned getting some money for design for the future. I don't know that the community is really aware that that design to add on the residents would be to the south of Dinkle and east of 344, that whole section, which would force residents to add on to the sewer and connect, and at their own expense, fill in their septic and then connect to the town's utility system. Now for that, I am not in agreement because I think that that's trying to put the cost on the backs of some of the poorest in our community in that side of town. So I would pursue very aggressively for finding engineering solutions to what we do have, to add on commercial entities and to not force residents onto the system.
Thank you very much. On to the next question. We're getting tougher and tougher as we go along. This one's sort of the elephant that's been in the room in the past week. With the recent violent crime and the neighboring town criminal activities coming to Edgewood, how do you plan to keep this community safe? How do you plan to keep this community as a safe place to live while at the same time increasing economic development? With the caveat here that multifamily housing increases crime rates. And we're starting with Linda, I'm sorry.
Well, I've got to say, we've got a great police force. I had the opportunity to participate in their first Citizens Police Academy this past year in the fall. It was a 10-week course, and it was open to all citizens, and I believe they plan to offer it again in March. So be mindful of it and take advantage of it. That 10-week course, each program, each week, was taught by a different officer, so it allowed us the opportunity to get to know our officers on a personal basis. We had dinner together, and the different topics that they shared with us were domestic violence, internet crimes, drugs and gangs. There was a whole array, a whole gamut of topics that they presented on. And so that's one way for the community to get involved and learn about what's happening here and what our officers have to go through. Anyway, I was moved to tears and told them that I couldn't do their jobs, and I thank them, for what they do for us. In addition to that, our Edgewood Police Department offers a Neighborhood Watch program, and so that's something all of you in your own individual neighborhoods can take part in and participate in. And the other thing I've got to say, I am so impressed with our police force under our Chief Ronald Crow. They are very involved in community policing, and if you see any of the events that we have throughout the year in this community, they're always present. And I just really appreciate the bond that they develop with us as individuals and as a community. And I think we owe them all our support and our thanks, and I think they're just doing a great job.
Thank you. Susan?
First, I'd like to take issue with the statement that multifamily housing equals an increase in crime. I really don't believe that. When I talk about multifamily housing, I am not talking about the projects. I'm talking about good, planned, multifamily affordable housing. Growth doesn't have to equal crime, although the more people you have, the more likely you are to have someone who is not a good citizen. I think a lot of this can start in the schools, in our parenting, and in our young people. This gives me an opportunity to say that I think we're missing out on things for our young people between 12 and 18. Things safe that they can do, things enjoyable to them, not to me. Let's think about a movie theater, for goodness sake. Anyway, I think Neighborhood Watch, but that doesn't always work because I live in a neighborhood where I can just about see my neighbor, They have the police force here in Edgewood really are fantastic, and they respond as soon as you call them. We had an opportunity to call 911, and when I said, oh, no, we've taken care of it, they came out and checked anyway, just to make sure everything was okay. Supporting the police force, I think they do an excellent job of community outreach and service. They can get their picture taken with Santa Claus anytime they want to. We just have to support them and make sure that is a good line item in our budget for public safety.
Thank you, Yvonne.
I think it's vital that the board is supportive of our police department. Unfortunately, as the story was coming out and more, and then you heard there was 5, 6, 7 people involved, that was kind of disheartening. And at that point, I was like, wow, what could you have, what could we have done? There's so many people who were out to do something bad. I don't know what the answer is to that. After that happened, my daughter and I went into Smith's and we saw a security guard. I was saddened that I had to have a security guard at my Smith's in Edgewood. But I also knew why that had to happen. But it kind of felt like a little loss of innocence took place of my town, and it was sad. But I think that we continue to support our police department. We continue to educate our town. We need to let people know that it's okay if you see something kind of out of form, to say something to somebody. We need to be a neighbor to each other. That's one thing I will say, that the overwhelming response from this community for Mr. Mike and his family has, it just shows the spirit of the people in this town. So is there a way that we're going to make it go away? No. But I think that we definitely just need to be mindful and be supportive, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Audrey?
I think that there are many ways on council that we can strive to keep our community safe. To a certain extent, like Yvonne says, it is a reality, and unfortunately we do get that element coming out from Albuquerque at times. But overall, our town is one of the safest towns with one of the lowest crime rates, so that is positive, and we would work really hard to keep it that way. Definitely the police force, supporting the police force, ensuring that there's adequate budget, education as well, because education decreases crime, pushing the education of the community to see something, say something, and what goes along with that are the neighborhood watches. And our police did come to, I'm HOA president of my neighborhood, and here is one of my neighbors actually who started our neighborhood watch program, and we did have them come to our meeting and listen to them, and they had great examples of the success of the neighborhood watch program and how neighbors have actually caught things and prevented things from happening right here in Edgewood. Also importantly, you may have seen in some of my ads, but I am in favor of helping the school district with the anti-drug program. And I think between the county and the town and other sources, getting things for kids to do. I did serve on that committee long ago for the town, and there just wasn't any funding. But I've seen at the legislature this year that there may be some additional funding for after-school things. And so the anti-drug program, I would support Elizabeth Howells from the school district in that. And then also things for kids to do after school so that hopefully they keep busy and don't start that pattern of drug use early on. Thank you.
I'm proud that I was serving on council when we mustered the political will to start a police department. At the time, the town of Edgewood got police coverage from a couple of state policemen who were barracked here and covered, I believe, from Santa Rosa to Quemado while they were covering us, along with the county sheriff's department. And at the time, there really wasn't much crime to speak of, but I think we kind of knew that this was coming. It's also near and dear to my heart because I substitute teach in the schools, and this is a document on security in the schools that I was told to read to my 4th period physics class yesterday. Or I'm sorry, on Thursday. And the concerns here are very similar. I think some of what we've talked about, if you see something, say something. I called in a tip to the state police myself. I was digging in a campaign sign and was approached by somebody who just seemed out of place by his neck tattoos and other things, and I called the state police about it. It turned out to be a dead-end tip, but if you see something strange, it's better to report it and have it be meaningless than the other way around. When we started our police department, we were very focused on the idea of community policing, and at the time there were grants available for that. If that's still the case, I would say we should pursue those and see what we can do to use those for personnel or equipment. Those can't be used, as I understand it, for sustained positions, but I'm sure we can make use of it. Also, cross-communication between police departments, which I'm sure happens now, and that's very, very important to maintain that. So those few things would be a great place to start. Yeah, there's probably more crime coming.
Thank you. You know, we're winding up now. We're getting close to our end here. So now's the opportunity for closing statements. There's still several questions here, but a lot of them, and you can use this in your closing statement if you so choose. Want to know some of the skills that you have and that you would bring to a council, some of the things that you've done in the community, and some of the experience that you have that you would bring to the council. So, you know, hopefully within the context of your closing statements, you can sort of touch on those things, if you will. And we'll start off with Susan.
Oh, all right. I have worked in the nonprofit community for over 20 years. I am what they call a certified fundraising executive. I've been writing grants, been looking at budgets. I was senior executive for a $250,000 nonprofit in Albuquerque. I like to think out of the box. Just, you know, that old saying, if you do the same thing over and over and get the same result, what that means. I like to look at other options, even if they might not fit in that certain box. I know how to read a budget. I know how to write a budget. I am very good at public relations and collaboration and creating collaborations or working with others. I play pretty well with others. I don't have to be in charge all the time. I have, as you might know, worked very hard to pass the bond to build the animal shelter. That is near and dear to my heart. What I'd also like to see here is perhaps a coordination, because there is a linkage between animal abuse and domestic violence. And I think that would be rather important here. I think that bringing it to the forefront is not pretty, but I think it is important. I believe in listening, and I believe in your participation in what's going on. No more closed doors at City Hall. It needs to be crystal clear what's going on and who's making decisions and where the money is going and where it's coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. Yvonne?
Oh, I thought you were going to go the other way.
Nope.
Okay. I was trying. That was a good try, right? What I bring, so I did serve on the Estancia Town Council. I also was president of the library board when we were given $1 million to build our beautiful library in Estancia. I've also helped out in some of my political party whenever needed. I am a licensed master social worker. I work with people. I like people. I wish I could say that I'm not bossy, but I won't lie, I can be kind of bossy sometimes, but I do like to hear what people have to say, and I'm a huge advocate in empowering our citizens and empowering our people. The government is for our people. The government is to talk for the people. So I think that it needs to be a very open door policy. I'm that way. My husband can tell you that. I think it's important to get everybody involved. If we want to make this a better place, then it needs to start at your house, at your home. So I truly appreciate the opportunity to be on this board. I will be honest with you, I think voting for any of these people is great. I think that Edgewood is very lucky to have such a very well-versed, educated board to choose from. So I wish you guys all luck. And but if you have any questions for me, you can contact me at any time. Thanks.
Thank you, Audrey.
I guess the main strength that I bring to the table is my passion and love for our town and wanting to see great things for Edgewood. I'm very committed. As I mentioned before, I served Edgewood on our school board for 8 years and want to continue serving our town. Some of my strengths, I'm very busy, but I'm very successful. There's been a study that's shown that busy people are successful people, so I can be very efficient and served at the school district, at the local, state, and federal levels, many committees and appointed positions that I don't have now, so I have the time to replace that. I do have the skills in leadership and administration, being a CPA and a CFE. Some of my clients have included the City of Albuquerque, Santa Fe County, Roadrunner Food Bank, etc., etc. So I have a very long resume of governmental and nonprofit clients. My counselor pay, I would absolutely reinvest that into community nonprofits. So I'm not here for the money, guys. I am here to serve, and any counselor pay that I do receive from the town, as we would, I believe it's $400 a month, I would put that back into the community, into nonprofits. I'm already a member of the New Mexico Municipal League and take the trainings that the current counselors take, and so there would be no learning curve with me. I would hit the ground running. And I've had 20 years of experience in working with councils and administrators. One thing that sets me apart too is that I don't like the grudges that have existed in the past. And so for me, I would want to serve with an open mind and work with the administration, with the mayor, with my fellow council, and just try to work things together to move things forward in Edgewood. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn?
Well, I mentioned before, I'm retired from UNM from the medical school. I don't know if I got into any detail though. My background's in clinical psychology, and I was a licensed mental health counselor. I ran school-based health centers for UNM that were funded by the Indian Health Service, and I drove to Laguna Pueblo pretty much every day. And a lot of that was drug and violence prevention. I also worked in programs for families using drugs in which there was a drug-exposed infant exposed in utero. I've been a federal grant reviewer 5 times. And then finally, my last 12 years at UNM, I managed a division that was, I think it was about 40 people, 20-something of them faculty and the rest staff, mostly cancer research with a $5 million budget. I've served on council before, from 06 to 2010. I was the fill-in representative to the Middle Rio Grande Council of Governments on behalf of Edgewood when Ms. Mahalik couldn't make the meetings. I was also on the board of our Economic Development Association. I have a sense of humor, which is very important, trust me. You'll lose your mind serving on council if you don't have a sense of humor. I was a professional drummer for 6 or 7 years and was eyeing the drum set up here when I first came in. And I think, as I said before, my goal really is to apply the skills I have and just my personal demeanor, the way I go about things. I'm a good negotiator, I'm flexible, and I'd like to bring all that to bear for the town of Edgewood. for whatever challenges we face. We don't know them all right now. Things are going to present themselves that we can't even see. And I'm going to be there to try and clear that hurdle for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Linda?
Okay, well, as I mentioned earlier, I've already worked for you for 5 months as interim clerk treasurer. When I was appointed, the council unanimously voted me and approved me in. And the same thing happened when I was asked to backfill for Councilor Ring's position when he retired early. I got a unanimous vote by the town council to appoint me to the current council. I want to say Edgewood is soon going to be 20 years old, and it's time for all of us to pull together in the same direction to establish some forward momentum to reach those goals of economic development and community prosperity that we all say we want. I ask you to join me to make Edgewood the little town that could, and that was a statement that was coined by Tabuni Flores, the Santa Fe County Deputy Manager, when he was out here for the ceremonial groundbreaking for our First Choice Clinic. He was quite pleased and impressed that, we were able to pull it all together to make it happen. I seek your input. I am your representative on the council, and I invite your thoughts, ideas, and suggestions. It's not about what Linda wants, it's what this community wants and the direction they want to take. I want you to know I am a calm, thoughtful, rational, independent thinker who does her research. I mean, I'm a librarian. I do my research and I listen to all points of view before making decisions that are going to benefit the greater Edgewood community. So I want you to know also I represent no special interest. My special interest is a prosperous, inviting community of Edgewood. And I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the candidates for coming out for this, and you in the audience. That applause also should apply to the Edgewood Chamber of Commerce and both the Independent and the Telegraph for hosting this, and of course Woodsend Church for allowing us to take over their space for a couple hours. We really